Attention! Your attention, please. This is an important public service announcement.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Grand Failure Beyond the Streets.
Hello and welcome back everyone to the Grand Failure Beyond the Streets podcast. I'm your host, Rebekah Massie from the Northwest area of Surprise. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm so glad that you're here and welcome aboard. I do strongly encourage you, once you have the time on your hands, to go back and listen to the first 2 episodes of this podcast. But for now, let's go ahead and dive right into today's topic. Today is a very special episode of the Grand Failure podcast. In fact, I'd almost call it a mini episode because it is going to be a little bit shorter than my previous 2. But today we are diving into a crucial topic that affects us all, and that is election participation and the importance of getting candidates on the ballot. So let's start with the basics. Why does election participation matter? Well, simply put, your vote is your voice. It's how you express your opinions, your values, your aspirations, and any other thoughts, feelings, or points of concern for your community and your city, or heck, even your country at a national level. And when we engage in the electoral process, we have the power to shape the future that we want to see. But it's important to note that the electoral process is not simply just about voting. It's not just about casting your ballots. It's also about ensuring that we have a diverse pool of qualified candidates running for office. Now, getting candidates on the ballot, believe it or not, does require community involvement and support. So whether you're passionate about traffic issues like myself, education, healthcare, the environment, you name it, having a candidate that shares your same concerns and similar vision to yours is crucial. So you may be asking yourself, how can you make a difference? Well, first and foremost, register to vote if you have not already done so. This is important because your voice does matter, but it can only be heard if you're a part of the electoral process. Encourage your friends, family, neighbors, whomever, right, to register too. Every single vote counts. And if you aren't registered, you can register by going online to beballotready.org. That's beballotready.org. O-R-G. Now, once you're registered to vote, the next step you may consider is getting involved in local politics beyond just voting. You could attend town hall meetings, engage with the candidates, ask them about their plans, ask them about their priorities, and don't be afraid to hold them accountable and demand transparency. Ask those hard questions. Submit a public record request if you have to, if you feel that there's something not being shared, posted, or otherwise provided to you as a constituent. You can even request to speak or make a public comment at nearly all of the City of Surprises meetings, including city council meetings. Another great way to get involved is helping a qualified candidate get onto the ballot. As history shows us, not many write-in candidates are ever able to run a successful campaign, much less get elected. But fear not, the candidate process is fairly straightforward. There's a bit of paperwork that the candidate has to fill out, and once that bit is done, the prospective candidate then needs to do something called a nomination petition. Now, this petition is involving a process where you have to go about and collect a specific number of signatures in the area that you want to run for office in. And once you collect enough signatures, you're able to turn in all of that paperwork and finally are listed as a choice on the ballot. Now, it is really important to note that by signing one of these petitions, you are in no way casting a vote for that particular individual. That part happens when you actually get your ballot. So when you get your early voter mail-in ballot or you physically go to the polling site, that's when you cast your vote. The petition process that I'm speaking about in signing one of these nomination petitions is literally just you stating that, yes, you think that this person should be allowed to be on your future ballot. It's that simple. Now, currently in the city, there are a few offices up for election this cycle, and unfortunately, a couple of them have uncontested elections thus far. The most impactful of which, in my humble opinion, is the mayoral race. Right now, the current councilwoman out of our City of Surprise District 2, Allie Klein, is the only person on the ballot. I'm going to say that again. She is the only person on the ballot for the role of mayor at this present time. As stated before, on a prior episode, and I'll state it again here. I personally am not a proponent of uncontested elections. They feel disingenuous, like a complete farce, or hell, even an insult to the democratic foundations that our country was founded on way back when. There is currently another individual who is actively working to get on the ballot, and anybody who's collecting signatures for him has officially entered crunch time. Now, this individual's name is Kevin Sarter. He currently works for the Dysart School District. He previously held a position on the city's Planning and Zoning Commission for a short while, and he is also a military veteran, just to name some of his qualifications and work experience. You can get more information if you're curious at all on his website, sarterforsurprise.com. And it's a number 4 in there, not the word for. So that's Sartor, SARTOR, the number 4, surprise, surprise.com.com. I will link this on my grandfailure.site page for the podcast. I will also go ahead and link his petition, which you can also access from his site directly. There's a little button right in the middle of the screen that says, click here to sign my petition, something to that effect. If you have not already signed a petition for a mayoral candidate, i.e. if you did not sign Allie Klein's petition, which she's already turned in, then you are free to go ahead and sign Kevin's petition and give yourself a choice on election day. I do strongly encourage you to do that. Whether or not you make up your decision to vote today, right here, right now, that's fine. You don't need to do that. All you're doing is simply giving yourself a chance to further vet out these two candidates and then later decide how you want to cast your vote. Now, speaking of the candidates and candidacy overall, another important aspect of the election process is supporting candidates who align with your values. Now, you may be saying, well, Rebekah, I supported them, I voted for them. That's not what I mean. Now, what I do mean is actually physically supporting them. And that can look like things along the lines of volunteering for their campaign. There's, of course, donating to their cause or their campaign fund. Or you can simply spread the word about their platform. Whether you know it or not, or realize it or not, every single action, no matter how minuscule you may view it, truly makes a difference. Now, speaking for myself and my own personal experience, I know that sometimes finding a candidate that you 100% align with may feel like an impossible task. And believe me, I hear you, especially since I personally am not registered as either a Republican or Democrat. I've mentioned it before. I'm actually registered as a libertarian for a number of different reasons, but that's neither here nor there. So being somebody who's independent or registered as a third party like myself can make these waters far more murkier than they are even for somebody who is part of one of the two main political parties that we have here in the U.S. However, my personal advice is this. When you're looking for a candidate, figure out what issues are the most important to you. Research the candidate's views, voting records if available, and base your decisions on how you cast your ballot that way. Base it on facts. Forget voting with your party lines. You know the saying, talk is cheap. It's really time that we all force these candidates to put their money where their mouths are and vote based upon their actions. So cast our vote based upon their actions, not their words. Now, finally, let's say that you simply feel like you are SOL, you cannot seem to find a candidate that aligns with your main concerns, or maybe you think the candidates that are out there and their focuses are just simply not in line with what you feel is important or what you feel should be looked at or should be that hot button issue right here, right now. If you, as an individual, are truly passionate about a particular issue or set of issues and you don't see anybody addressing it, you can always consider running for office yourself. Becoming a candidate is a powerful way to advocate for change and bring some new perspectives to the table. All right, well, I suppose it's time that I go ahead and wrap up this mini episode. I said it was going to be a mini episode at the beginning, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Let me go ahead and recap for you really quickly. Number one is that election participation and getting candidates on the ballot are both vital components of a thriving democracy. Number two is that your engagement can shape the trajectory of your community and ensure your voice is heard. And then third and finally, remember every single vote counts and every action matters. So get out there and get involved. That's my challenge to you. And that is going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember to stay engaged in your community's electoral process. This is Rebekah Massie signing off with the Grand Failure Podcast. Until next time.
This has been a public service announcement.
You're listening to The Grand Failure Beyond the Streets, a podcast about the ongoing public safety crisis in Surprise, Arizona.
The Grand Failure Podcast is hosted, edited, and produced by Rebekah Massie. Jonathan Perry is credited with the voiceover and announcement work. I'd like to thank Spotify for Podcasters as the hosting and distribution platform, and the folks over at Audacity with their open source software that made the production and editing of this podcast possible. Any graphics, logos, or artwork used to promote or identify the podcast was created by me, Rebekah Massie, using the Canvas software. Sound effects and music provided courtesy of freesound.org, a website that offers royalty-free Community Commons license for a variety of sound bites, songs, and effects. Any sources or information will once again be linked on the webpage dedicated to the Grand Failure Podcast on thegrandfailure.site. That's thegrandfailure.site. I'd also like to thank the local Political Action Committee, or PAC, by the name of Voice of Surprise, for their partnership in my efforts on this podcast, as well as give a quick shout out and thank you to my husband, Brian Massie, who has graciously put up with my work on this endeavor. Thank you all for your time, and for all of the podcast credits, details, and information, those can all be found on the website, thegrandfailure.site.